sensational work by the Saints, and the Dogs are on the canvas.
For the Gold Coast Suns, their 200th game as a club is a ripper. What a scalp. 12 touches in the final quarter. Give yourself a chance to win the game. And he has kicked the goal. Parrish has kicked the goal for the Bombers.
Hello, I'm Damian Barrett and welcome to this Return to Footy edition of Access All Areas. And in keeping with these uncertain times, the Big Four, Collingwood, Richmond, West Coast, GWS, all failed to get 4 premiership points out of round 2. Matthew Lloyd, as always, is here. And Lotto, there was also a surprise at Marvel Stadium on Sunday night.
They were brilliant last night, St Kilda Footy Club. Just their run, their carry, their spread. We'll take a look at some of their vision, Damo, and they were magnificent. They've been seen in past years under Alan Ritson as being quite dour. But some of this vision and some of the recruits, you just see they're all involved. Obviously, Marshall's a star, but this guy, Dan Butler, he could be one of the cheap recruits of the year in a sense. They didn't have to give much up for him.
Is that Jones?
Jones, yeah. His big question mark has been his ball use, but he was pretty good yesterday. Butler involved again, over the top. And let's see, King, second gamer, into Bradley Hill. So it's all these new recruits, and sometimes it can take a period of time to gel. But they were magnificent last night.
They threw away a game against North Melbourne way back in round 1. They were 5 goals plus up, and they were really disappointed, really hurt. They've used the 12 weeks of COVID-19 shutdown to get themselves right, and they had a style of play, Lordo, that the Bulldogs could not match.
Yeah, just couldn't cope with the pressure on the ball. They couldn't cope with the leg speed of the St Kilda Footy Club. So, yeah, maybe it wasn't a surprise, and the Dogs may well just be a poor side in 2020.
We'll get to them in a minute. You mentioned Dan Butler and the speed with which he attacks the footy. He hits it at 100 miles an hour. And this passage of play here sort of summed up exactly what they were about yesterday.
Yeah,
the Saints.
Just wanted to highlight what an indictment it was. Obviously, there's Ryan Gardner, Alex Keith and Matt Suckling. They are in front of Dan Butler. Dan Butler kicks the ball to Bradley Hill. They all just stop. And Butler sees a clear goal scorer and says, I'm going again here. And the three of them, they just look at each other and go, they just were asleep. It just shows how St Kilda were on, the Dogs were off. That was a horrible loss yesterday, but well done to Brett Ratton and the Saints. They were magnificent.
Yeah, that was a major error there for the Bulldogs you've just highlighted. There were so many of them just with general skill, Lordo. You can see that they got caught up in the way St Kilda was playing, and I saw post-match Luke Beveridge comment that they weren't planning to handball as much, but they were forced to. But dropping marks like that in the back line,
even that's not hard enough there from Lipinski. So yeah, they weren't strong enough at the contest. I think St Kilda's pressure forced them into making errors. It was just a clear gulf between the two teams yesterday, and the Dogs 0-2 now. They have to win this week.
They do. Do you like what the Saints are doing? I know it's a small body work.
I think Brett Ratton allows them to play instinctive footy, but when they lose possession of the ball, they're very organised as well. Perfect way to play footy.
And on the Dogs, elimination final debacle last year, a really equally poor performance against Collingwood in round 1, and now this game against St Kilda in round 2. They're in a troublesome period.
They are, because if you've got a coach saying they didn't follow the game plan, you've also got a lot of frustration around the way the side's being picked, Damo. A lot of ask, how is Ryan Gardner? I know he's just trying to forge a career, but how is he playing ahead of Trengove and Cordy? How did Billy Gowers get a game in front of, say, a Josh Shackey type?
How does Toby McLean not get a game?
Why is he not playing? Why is Liberatore not playing? So there's a lot of question marks around the selection of Luke Beveridge's teams as well.
Massive game against their rival GWS coming up this week. We just saw some really dodgy ball work there. There was some nice clean work in the game in Sydney yesterday, Sydney Swans and Essendon. And the Swans, it wasn't a disappointing overall big picture thing to lose the Bombers yesterday. They gave themselves a chance. They were clean late. They put themselves back into it. Yeah,
they're having to manufacture goals. And you're seeing, because there's no Franklin, no Reid, so you've got all these smalls. Will Hayward, Tom Papley, Louis Taylor, who we just saw. And what history these two teams have got. Just so many tight finishes. Another one yesterday. So the Bombers always had an answer, though, to the Swans. They do,
and it came with this really clever kick from Devon Smith. You can see the time, and you can see him getting the ball over a Swans player to Darcy Parish there, who sees that moment, soaked up his 30 seconds, importantly, and then, equally importantly, drilled the goal. And he had a massive last quarter.
Yeah, he's continued on where he left off last year, had a massive second half to the season. And well done to Zach Merritt. I know the disappointment he would have had for being dropped out of the leadership group. but he is their best player. He was their best player, in my opinion, again yesterday, and he stood up when he needed to yesterday. So good win from the Bombers, 2-0.
Yeah.
And they haven't been in that position many times. They usually start seasons poorly.
And two narrow wins too.
Yeah.
They held on against the Dockers back in round. North Melbourne surprised GWS in Sydney yesterday. They did it with some really clean ball handling. And again, after a relatively slow-scoring first three quarters, they broke it open late. And Curtis Taylor there taking a mark. You can see Jared Pollock there instrumental in a lot of what happened late. Their senior players got together, Lordo, after the GWS team came back.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys. You see Hall and Pittard. They were gone at their clubs.
And this goal from Thomas.
Yeah. So I thought they broke open this game where it was an arm wrestle, all day, an arm wrestle, and then they wanted it more. They were harder, they were tougher, they stuck to their game plan more, and just broke open the GWS Giants by the end of it.
Yep, they regained their composure when the Giants did come at them. Trent Dumont had the ball, and you can see Sean Higgins, an experienced and a really good player yesterday in his whole career, come over to him, tell him to do something. I reckon the degree of the difficulty in what he actually pulled off here was 100 out of 100 degree of difficulty, but he did it. He got the ball into the hands of Jack Zeeble.
They seem a very united group, and some will say that's luck. No, I think that's just smart play. A lot of teams, aren't organised forward of the ball, but you see Ben Brown and Zeeble working for each other. But this is where the Giants are off. Whitfield and Haynes to the right-hand side.
Yep.
What are they actually doing there? So they've got their hands to their heads.
So what does Leon Cameron say to Lockie Whitfield?
What are you guarding?
Yep.
You're either guarding the most dangerous space or you're guarding where the ball's going to go to. You guys stood there. And I think the Giants, by the end of it, they were broken by a better and hungrier and nastier team in the North Melbourne Football Club. And you've got to beat North this year. They are under Reece Shaw on a mission, I think. Yeah.
Well, a nastier team also was Gold Coast Suns and what they did to West Coast, particularly in the third quarter when they set it up with a 5-1 burst. And no one could have seen this coming.
No, I didn't see this coming at all. But when you're in this mood as a team, it becomes infectious. And they just started hunting. And I think Dewey built them up all week to say, it's not about just being an honourable effort anymore. It's not about just competing. We've got to win some games.
Yeah.
And the belief just grew and grew. I thought they played the conditions better.
Yep.
They were harder, the slippery conditions. They just got it on the boot like this. And just in a sense, it was just by how far in the end.
It was by how far, and quite extraordinarily for a man playing his second game of footy in Matt Rowell. And we'll move on to some of his isolated highlights in a moment. For him to almost be guaranteed a 3-vote Brownlow medal performance in his second game of footy was quite extraordinary. This club has been, I suppose, based on false hope and false words and fake promises, but on the back of Rowell coming in, and you know a lot about him, Otto. You coached against him at junior level. This kid is ready-made.
Yeah, I've coached against Matt for the last 3 years, and he was powerful and strong in year 10. So I think he could have been playing AFL footy last year. Every big game he's played, he's been best on ground at junior level. But they couldn't tackle him yesterday. And I think the last 12 weeks he looks like he's got musclier, stronger. He's not here to waste time. Yeah. He can make others around, so players who played 150 games wake up and go, OK, he's inspiring me, I've got to do this, do that. So I even had Joel Selwood tweeting saying, I'm going to look forward to watching this guy for the next 15 years.
Yeah, doesn't come any higher than that, does it? There's a bit of woe as me about the Eagles at the moment, and I sympathise with them. They had to go to the South East Queensland hub in order to get the whole competition away, but they've been bemoaning it. Their leaders in Jeremy McGovern now is going to miss a game of footy for something he did to Sexton yesterday. Now, you can argue that was far less serious to what Burgoyne did to Dangerfield, and we'll look at that issue in a moment, but he shouldn't be doing this as a leader. Yeah, sure, he was pushed off the ball, but he's got to be better than that in those situations, Lordo.
Yeah, and now he sits on the Gold Coast in a hub while everyone's preparing to try and rebound, and he can't play when he's their best defender. So undisciplined from McGovern there.
Yep. The Port Adelaide big win in the showdown against the Crows was led by the youngsters, and a lot has already been said. Rosie and Butters and Dersman. But equally importantly, Lotto, was Todd Marshall, the big centre forward, who's taken some time, they often do, but he's clean with ball. Now, that's an easy one out the back, but he set up a lot of other play, didn't he?
Yeah, what you said is right. He's so clean. He makes others around him better. So just this rolls off. It's what you want as a forward, is someone who'll roll quickly, and he set up Butters. This is a freak goal from Butters. That you can't teach that. That was magnificent, but just really, really smart with the way he plays, and his foot skills are elite, just to the favoured side. Exactly what you need.
And speaking of favoured, he is one of those of Ken Hinkley, the coach. He's got a lot of time for him, and maybe 2020 is the year that it comes all together for him, because he's had big raps for a long time. We know personally he's had a lot to deal with, but it just might be his time.
Yeah, and hopefully it's Port's time as well, don't it? They've got off to a great start and should win another game this week.
Although you might just slightly temper that.
Yeah.
Crows and back in round one when they beat the Gold Coast Suns, they were both tipped to finish bottom four, so we need to see them.
And they have Fremantle this week, so but they can go 3-0. They're playing hard. Slick sort of footy, which is good to watch. Yeah.
We saw some clean ball handling there. The Blues and D's game at the MCG, Marvel, was anything but. And Jack Viney, look, he made a decision there at the spur of the moment. It didn't work for him. Walsh also failing to use the ball properly. You can see the score, you can see what's at stake, and again, Walsh just didn't use the ball properly at that moment.
No, they played like two bottom six teams, the two clubs on the weekend. But Melbourne come out of the blocks really well, tried to play safe, and then Carlton got off to another horror start. So they'll be looking at everything, Carlton. They'll be looking at their warm-ups. They'll be looking at everything they're doing through the week because, they've had horror first quarters of the first two rounds.
One thing they don't have to look at, though, is Jacob Wiedering, who's becoming the player he was going to be at one stage. He had a rough patch, but for a young player playing key position, as he has done since his first game, Lordo, he's starting to put it together, isn't he, in a very consistent and dominant way. He's
had a few injuries, and I also think Brennan Bolton tried to play him in the forward line, and he was drafted because he's the best centre-half back in the country, and they were trying to make him a forward, and he's not a forward. He's a centre-half back, and he can be the best centre-half back in the game. So you can just see how comfortable he is.
Do you think he feels he belongs there?
Yeah, and I think they made a mistake by throwing him at both ends, in a poor side, over the last couple of years.
Some weird matchups way back on Friday night, Hawthorn versus Geelong. And just take a look at this for the forward line of the Cats, Lordo. Now, what we're highlighting here is big men against smaller, more agile people, as a rule. Now, if that ball hits the ground in that Geelong forward line, we almost knew it was going to happen, and 14 seconds into the game, it hit the forward line ground in the Geelong forward line. Look what happened.
Yeah, there's a couple that stood out. Frost on Rowan was a big one, and Dalhouse. So Sicily's on Dalhouse. That's not a good matchup either. Gets out the back, ground level, and Dalhouse kicks a goal. So I think Clarko spoke about their spread through the midfield, but he's also got massive decisions to make. This week they play Rioli, Higgins, Castagna, and Bolton. So 4 smalls. So even Nippier smalls, and they get up nice and high, work your back. So someone's got to go.
So does the McAvoy experiment maintain? Does he persist with that?
I think he will. I think he will. It wasn't his fault on the weekend what went on, but they've got decisions to make. Does Frost not play? What do they do with... they can't play Frawley, McAvoy and Frost in that defence.
They've brought in a lot of talent from other clubs, and obviously when you bring in Tom Mitchell and Windsor Brownlow, you can add that as a tick. O'Meara's been solid without being spectacular, but Scully, yes or no. Patton, we don't know what's going to happen there. Scrimshaw couldn't even get into this team. We have a look, though, to raise this and highlight the fact that their under-24s, Lordo, looks like that. And while there's some serious talent on that list, how many of that number there are going to burst through and be there in their next premiership team?
I think Finn McGuinness is the one that I'm looking forward to watching play. A father-son would have gone top 15 to 20, so he's one to really look forward to watching. But no, it's not in any comparison to probably those teams that are challenging at the moment. And we see what Port Adelaide have done with their top 3. It's making a real difference. Where for Hawthorn, they'll always be competitive under Alistair Clarkson, but I just don't feel they can challenge in the next few years with that bottom end or that young list. No.
So that topping up of players from other clubs, and Wingard's another one who's yet to prove himself at Hawthorn.
I think it worked when Burgoyne and Hale and Gibson come, because you've got Rioli, Roughhead, Franklin Lewis, Birchall,
Hodge,
all young stars that have come through, so they complement you. Who are these guys complementing at the moment? I think it's going to hurt them in the long run.
But speaking of Burgoyne, in my eyes, he should not be playing football in round 3 after what he did to Paddy Dangerfield on the weekend. And what the match review panel does, as we know, is seriously and heavily weight the amount of damage and injury sustained by the player who's the victim in this particular sling tackle. And Paddy Dangerfield got up reasonably quickly and then went public saying there was no issue with it. But to me, they need to change their guidelines, Lordo. To me, they need to remove the onus placed on the injury sustained in the incident. That was just pure luck that Dangerfield wasn't knocked out in that situation. And as such, to me, they've just got to change the whole thinking on what they're doing.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more on that. And I think all they've done is set themselves up for a massive fall, because someone's going to be slung down in the next week or two, and they'll give him a week, and we'll go, how did Burgoyne get off? So he need to be given a week for that.
Yep. Tigers and Pies way back on Thursday night. They're the two biggest teams in the competition when it's all said and done in the premiership race this year, at least from a Victorian perspective. Lotto, what did you make of it? It was a low-scoring draw, but neither team would come out of it too greatly concerned.
No, I came out of it saying that, while there wasn't a lot of goals and people found it a dull game, good luck trying to break them down this year. I think they'll win the majority of the games. They might only lose 1 or 2, possibly 3 at the most.
Really?
Yeah, as teams. I think they were that good defensively, no one would break. And I think most teams will just capitulate under that pressure that Richmond and Collingwood show.
OK. We'll eventually get crowds back at all venues, Lordo, but until we do, we're going to have some moments for players and supporters. Back to the showdown. There was 2,500 people in there, but we're highlighting one particular person in this crowd, Lordo, as we go back.
Oh, we are. Good on him. Good on him. I think they were meant to have maybe 300 or 400 tickets, but it looks like there was only one Crows fan that got in the game, and he stood fat right to the end. And what about Mitchy Robinson? He's one of our favourites.
Yep.
Mitch Robinson. We love characters in the game, and look at his celebration after the game. He's just isolating himself, and he's got the moves, old Mitchy Robinson. Pretty happy with himself.
No, I love what he's brought to the table up there at the Lions. Hey, Lotto, thank you for your time today on Access All Areas, and thanks for watching us on Access All Areas. We'll be back next Monday.